And to shift gears to a more serious topic, of course, all over the news has been this shooting of this young boy in Florida.
Yes.
We've heard so many different sides of every story. We'll get the truth someday. I don't know when we will, but everybody seems like they have an opinion on this. Just based on what your observations are. We could talk about what we know in Florida first, so why don't we do that? What do you see happening here? What do you see playing out?
It's a story that I had been watching very intently. I was a history major in college, always very involved with the history of civil rights in the United States. And this is unfortunately a problem that still exists to this day. Mm-hmm. So quickly, the victim here is clear, and as facts continue, just this morning I read on another article on Huffington Post where they stated, I believe it's Mr. Zimmerman, who's the shooter, said his lawyer said he had a broken nose. His lawyer said he had grass stains on his back as if he had been attacked by Trayvon Martin. This, just as of this morning, there's surveillance video of this gentleman entering the police station. No evidence of bruising.
Wow.
Forget about a broken nose.
So this was like he was going into booking at this point? And
When they brought him in, because from what I've gleaned up to so far in the initial investigation, or lack of which is what I'm going to touch on momentarily, they bring the fella in to talk to him. He says it was self-defense under this, quote, stand your ground, unquote, law that's in Florida, not Jersey law. We'll certainly get into that. But quickly, there's three players here. So you have this kid, and it sounds, from what I hear, okay, not a perfect kid, but what teenager is.
Exactly.
He's also a teenager from a divorced family, for what that's worth. And, yeah, he got in some trouble in school and this and that. He was suspended. But this is an innocent kid. And now we have this guy, Mr. Zimmerman. From what I've read, Mr. Zimmerman is one of these guys who desperately wants to be in law enforcement, but he can't. And the reason he can't is he was once charged with assaulting a police officer.
Well, that'll kind of prevent you from getting a police gig,
right? Yeah, you think, right?
Right.
Now, this guy is a history. I believe the statistic I read was he's called 911 over 50 times.
To report other people?
He's taken on this assignment. It's like a gated community in this section of Florida, and he does his own patrol.
Oh, these neighborhood watch. Is that the word?
You got it. Neighborhood watch. Yeah. Thank you, Bert. He's got a licensed firearm that he walks around with. Now, in the last 1 year, I read in a very interesting article. Unfortunately, in every situation, he reports a suspicious black individual, one of which turned out to be a 6-year-old kid.
6-year-old.
6-year-old
wow.
kid, and he's worried, right? So there's a pattern here based, again, from what I've read. This young man was on the phone with his father's girlfriend, and he's saying, some man's following me.
Wow.
She says, run home. Line goes dead. Now, here's what we don't know what happened here. Was there a scuffle? Did this kid think he needed to defend himself? Did Mr. Zimmerman properly think he needed to defend himself? To me, Bert, the true tragedy of the case is the way the police department handled it. Now, the town, let me see here.
Sanford, Florida, right?
Thank you, Sanford, Florida. Now, to give a little background that I thought was quite interesting, just last year, 2011, the chief of police was forced from office after declining to prosecute when a police lieutenant's son had beat up a homeless African-American man. That's last year. So unfortunately, that speaks volumes. And to me, the greatest tragedy, other than the obvious, is the loss of a young man, is the way that the situation was handled. The police, no witnesses are interviewed at the scene other than Mr. Zimmerman. They don't even look at this young man's cell phone, which is the obvious way of determining identification. And I haven't read it, but I'm assuming the kid didn't have a wallet on him or what have you. So what did they do? They take him straight to the morgue and tag him as a John Doe.
without even trying to find next of kin. That's
Anything.
That's unbelievable.
That, to me, is the terrific tragedy here. And again, that's never to minimize what these poor parents must be going through. There's a reason why, from the President of the United States, it's become such a huge case. And yesterday, a congressman wore a hood on the floor.
He was disciplined for doing so, but he wanted to make a statement, sure.
And he made that statement,
Yeah.
and I get it. Unfortunately, to me, the great tragedy, and don't get me wrong, I have many friends in law enforcement. I have tremendous respect for law enforcement. But the situation in this particular town, there's a history of it, and there's no excuse. I don't care with this law or not, stand your ground or not. You have to do your job. And in fact, I believe it was a detective or a lieutenant wanted to charge Mr. Zimmerman with manslaughter. And then it came from, I believe, the attorney district's office as they said, no, not enough evidence. Under the law of stand your ground, he had every right to pull the trigger. Fortunately, that's not the law in the state of New Jersey. In all candor, and I realize there's some people out there who maybe think differently, just my opinion, no, this isn't the Wild West.
No. And I want to talk about Jersey's laws in just a second, but I mean, so when they brought Mr. Zimmerman in, was it basically just to get a statement from him and then understand your ground? They had to let him go?
They have discretion. They decided to let him go.
Wow.
They had discretion because, okay, the police do their job, fact-finding, investigating, but certainly something obviously involving a death of anybody, never mind a minor, it's going to go to the next level. In New Jersey, it's a prosecutor's office. I believe down in Florida, it's an attorney general or attorney district's office. And they do make the final call there. So we're not just talking about some cop who's doing his job and said, we'll let this one slide. This went high up, and they still walked away. And to this day, this fella hasn't been charged. My prediction is that's going to change.
How could it not? I mean, you got this kid is dead, and Mr. Zimmerman's gun is the reason. Right. How is he walking?
Let a jury decide if, under the stand your ground law, this guy's guilty, not guilty.
All right. The first photo I saw of Mr. Zimmerman was a mugshot of all things. Now, was that from when he assaulted the police officer? That wasn't the night of the Trayvon Martin shooting, right?
That is correct. Or at least that's my understanding.
Yeah.
And I've read, because and that's what's great about the internet, if I may, is in the old days you were stuck with whoever was delivering the news. Any controversial topic, I'll take a publication that I know, say, is flat out on the right, leans to the right.
Okay.
And I'll do the same to the left or radically to the left. And then I run it down my own value system that my parents taught me.
Through the Weinstein filter, right?
Right, the Weinstein filter
Right.
is a crazy place. So, but through the and then I draw my, certainly my own conclusions in that regard. What I was driving at is I've read articles where they're saying, now there's less of them, but when the incident first went down, they're saying that they show pictures of the guy clean cut in a suit and show young Trayvon Martin with his pants hanging low and fake gold teeth, and they're like, oh, you don't see this on the media.
Right.
But I've noticed that's going away because as more and more facts come out again, looks like Zimmerman is a guilty guy. And again, I've already said how I feel about how the police mishandled the situation. Mishandled's not even the right word, if I may. Recklessly handled the situation. But yes, I would say it is a mugshot.
Yeah.
And it must have been from a prior arrest.
That was probably it then. Okay, let's say theoretically you are representing George Zimmerman. What would you do? What would your advice to be to him?
Don't say anything.
Just
interviews.
Stay out of the limelight.
No, right.
Anybody comments?
And he is, quote
they go
unquote,
through me.
in
They
hiding.
go through you, right?
You got it. I handle all questions. I handle anything. It was funny. I don't know the fellow's name, but there's some aggressive guy on MSNBC. And I guess before they went live, the lawyer got the vibe that the interviewer was going to be very aggressive. got up and left.
Was that the camera shot of the empty chair that I saw?
Exactly.
Well, it was supposed to be him, but he left.
Exactly.
Wow. That's not representation. Hang in there and answer the questions. What's the big deal?
Chicken. I wish I could give you more eloquent
Was
words.
Is this a court-appointed guy, or is this Mr. Zimmerman's hand-selected attorney? Do you know the background
it's my
of that?
understanding. No, he's not a court-appointed guy. It's his. Unless I'm wrong, I don't believe so. That's his lawyer. His lawyer couldn't take the heat. But his lawyer, again, has been caught already in fabrications. He says, of course it falls under stand your ground. My guy had a bloody nose. Here he is on camera walking out of the police station. He doesn't have a scratch on him.
Yeah.
You got a broken nose. It's a little more than a scratch. I don't mean to be sarcastic, or facetious, but come on.
It seems like by the hour, by the day, we're learning more facts about what happened, what we think happened, what didn't happen, and whatnot. Let's say all this happened, Ed, in New Jersey. Is New Jersey a stand-your-ground state?
New Jersey is not a stand-your-ground state, and it's really not surprising. It's something you'd more likely see in the South, such as Florida. In New Jersey, to put it as simply as possible, if you are being threatened or you are defending someone who is being threatened with serious bodily injury or death, then you have the right to take self-defense to the ultimate level.
Okay.
Which is what happened here, what Mr. Zimmerman did. However, you cannot be unreasonable. In other words, say somebody breaks in your house. You pull your weapon. They run for it. You can't shoot that person in the back. You have to call police, and they'll go get him.
All right, same situation. I got the gun, and he takes a step toward me.
Now, different story, and you can defend yourself, your family, your house, your property. Dramatically different. The first thing, I'm not a cop, never have been, but I've seen enough movies to know, the first thing the forensics are going to do is to see, was he shot in the back?
Yeah.
Or shot in the chest? And that's going to make
that tells a lot. Sure. So let's say, for example, I'm walking on the boardwalk yesterday. Let's say my wife and I are walking, and somebody tries to grab my wife's purse off her arm. I would consider that a serious threat, wouldn't you?
I would consider it a serious threat. And again, that's why I'm not a proponent of the stand your ground law per se, because it gives too much latitude in what's clearly an emotional situation.
Oh, clearly.
That's your wife. You're going to protect her.
At all costs.
You've got it, at all costs. Now, under that scenario, though, in New Jersey, could you pull a gun and shoot him? No, you couldn't. Would you have a right to grab him, shove him on the ground, grab your wife's purse back, grab your cell, call the police? That's the way it would have to go down. You have a right to protect your wife, of course, but it's a question of reasonableness, degree. Let's take it a step further. I don't like using your wife as an example, but he pulls a knife.
Yeah, let's say he does that and creates almost a hostage situation.
All bets are off. You do what you got to do. Where he tries to take your wife's purse.
And it's justified in my case.
And she's obviously a strong woman. She's been dealing with you a long time.
Oh, yeah, she's tough.
She's a strong woman, right? She's tough as nails. So she's able to resist. She has a tight grip on her purse, and this person runs off. Yeah, call the police quick. He's heading this direction.
But
hopefully they catch him.
Don't chase him.
Nope, can't chase him.
Don't tackle him.
Can't tackle him.
Don't.
Got to walk away. Easier said than done.
Don't drop a knuckle sandwich in his face after I catch him. Don't do that.
And you gave me, as usual, a great example here, Bert, because you didn't use yourself. You used your wife as the example.
Yeah.
Because, speaking for myself, and I think most people behave and think the same way, I can take it on the chin pretty well. But if that was, say, my wife or my mother or my sister, now it's on.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Really takes it to another level.
The heat of the moment is uncontrollable, I would think, in some cases.
Precisely.
Say, hey, you know what? This guy tried to hurt my wife. Hey, I'm going to do everything.
And that's all the more reason, again, not to be redundant. I'm not an advocate of a law that would allow you to make that decision.
So why was it even created? Why is it on the books in some areas of the country? Did somebody actually fight for this to say, hey, you know what? You got to let people use deadly force to defend themselves in some
Well, candidly, I don't know the history of the legislation, but I do know American culture, and we live in a obviously a very large country. And we, you know, you look at Democrats and Republicans and the red states and the blue states. Like, here's a great example. In New Jersey, if a kid showed up at school with a gun, forget it. It's going to be first thing on the morning news, the evening news.
Sure.
They're going to shut the school down. Everybody's going to go crazy. I had a friend tell me once, he's from Pennsylvania, and he's a hunter, and he says, well, you know, it's not necessarily illegal for a high school kid to bring his firearm to school. I looked at the guy.
Try
said,
doing that here.
What are you talking about? He said, well, he might have been hunting that morning.
Yeah.
And he went straight to school from hunting. And this is Pennsylvania.
Yeah, this is
our neighbor.
An hour west of here, right?
Exactly. Our neighbor state, right? So it's really more, I think, of a cultural thing. The way, you know, it's a running joke, say, in Texas. Everybody's got a gun rack.
Yeah.
That's the way everybody. That's the way everybody rolls. We're in New Jersey, you know, or you take New York City and those extremely strict gun laws. That's why a fellow named Plaxico Burress went to jail for shooting himself.
Right. Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. It's a cultural thing, and you're right. You're right. But what do you think is next? What's the next thing you think we're going to learn about the Trayvon Martin, the Zimmermans? What's the next thing to come out of this, you think?
I anticipate that this Mr. Zimmerman's going to get charged. Forget about I believe it's just, as the facts continue to come out on a daily basis. But now you're getting a lot of pressure. This township and this county, whatever county in Florida, I don't know if this is Dade County or not, they're under a lot of pressure. Mr. Zimmerman's a worried guy.
Can the U.S. Attorney's Office get involved, or have they
They
already?
are involved.
They want to see some
Federal's
progress
involved,
here, right?
States involved, which is all the more reason I feel confident. My prediction is Mr. Zimmerman's going to be charged. Now, will it be felony murder? Will it be murder one? Will it be manslaughter? Well, again, as I alluded to earlier, that's, to me, other than the loss of a young man, the more global tragedy here is in 2012, we still have a situation where a young African-American kid is found dead, and they just tag him as John Doe and take him to the city morgue.
Yeah. I think there's another unanswered question, Ed. George Zimmerman, you said, had applied to be a police officer or whatever, and what was charged with assaulting a police officer at some point, which is why he could not get a job in law enforcement. Was the gun that was used on Trayvon Martin, was it licensed?
Yes.
And how does a guy who assaults a cop get a licensed gun in the first place?
Candidly, I don't have an answer for you.
But how does that happen? Doesn't common sense?
Well, first of all, you go to different parts of the country, and you can literally walk into a sporting goods store and very few, if any, questions asked, and walk out with a firearm. Not in New Jersey.
No,
not
maybe
in the New York metropolitan area.
It's just the way we've grown up in the culture here that you just can't do it. You don't even consider it. Right.
Exactly. It's just firearms, guns are viewed radically different in this part of our nation,
where it's mandatory prison time with a gun, with a crime with a gun, right?
Exactly.
Mandatory jail.
Exactly. Again, to bring up Plaxico Burress, you don't think he had the best lawyer in New York City? He's got the money.
Yeah.
And again, he's the victim. Still did jail time. Still went to Rikers.
The fact that he had a gun. That's all it takes.
That's all it takes. Bloomberg does not fool around in New York City.
Yeah, obviously not. If this was two adults, Ed, do you think it would get the national attention that it's gotten?
Probably not, although the racial component is what's really caught the national attention, to the point where the President of the United States, and one thing I've noticed, he very rarely, almost never, does President Obama field questions that was not the intent of a press conference. And I believe his press conference was something to do with his with the nomination of the new president of the World Bank, because this guy now he's arrested for illegal pimping and
Strauss-Kahn, right.
So that's what it was all about. And then a reporter asked a question about the Trayvon Martin case, and the president was clearly prepared. He wasn't shooting from the cuff.
Yeah.
He was prepared to address this, and the famous line is, if I had a son, he'd look like this kid.
Exactly.
This is our president discussing it. So clearly, would it be as quite as dramatic if it were two adults. I think you're right. It might not be, but the racial overtones, that's why we're having this conversation.
Yeah, and as things kind of develop, boy, time will tell about this. I think there's still a lot more we got to find out. There's about a minute where history is unaccounted. There's 60 seconds where nobody knows what happened.
And it never fails. It's usually the cover-up, from, Watergate being the mother lode, the greatest example of which, if Nixon didn't cover it up, there'd be none of this would have happened.
Right.
It's when he tried to cover it up. He would have said, I don't know about these guys breaking in the Watergate Hotel. I've stayed at the Watergate Hotel. It's a nice hotel. It's the cover-up that got him.
Exactly.
Martha Stewart, she didn't come in insider trading. Her broker called her and told her to sell. That's why you have a broker, to tell you what to do, to save you money. But then she went in and lied.
The crime was the cover-up.
You got it, brother.
Right.
Good to talk to you, WCTC legal analyst Edward Weinstein. We'll talk again soon, my friend. Thank you.